Welcome back to Hot Take. I'm joined by Mark Goldbridge. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad personally, but I think in relation to the transfer window, it just gets worse and worse as a Man United fan.
Yeah, and even me, Mr. Patience himself, it's wearing thin. I can't lie. I woke up, I was about to go to the gym. I read Ornstein's update, and I don't even know what it was, whether I was more disappointed that we haven't gotten Burmo yet, or the reaction to the news, or everything. It was a combination. Awful news for Man United. But we're going to be touching on Ruben and the pressure that he is under. We've got a clip we're going to play from Ashley Young. We're talking about Gyokeres to Arsenal. When will that complete? We're looking at the Ekitike and Isak deal as well. Are they both going to play together, as Newcastle fans are claiming? Could this be the end of Isak at Newcastle United? We're speaking about that. Plus the Gibbs-White legal case. What's Goldbridge's view on this? We're putting some of your hot takes up on the screens as well. So this is a different show to normal. If it's the first time you're watching it, it isn't just about the news. It's about reviewing some of the things people have said about players, scenarios, their hot takes, and getting Mark Goldbridge and partly my reaction to it. So hit the like button, please. Make sure you are subscribing. If you're watching on other social media platforms, retweet or like or share it. Do what it is you can do. But the first clip I want to play, and obviously we've had the bad in Burmo news today that the deal is delayed, but this is Ashley Young talking about Ruben Amorim going into next season.
Can you see the sort of start of something positive moving forward for United?
I think Ruben Amorim's got his way and his style of coaching, of his tactics, the way he wants to set up a team. And I think that, you know, we've seen he didn't want to come in at the time that he did. He wanted to be in at the start of the season. So it was going to be tough either way. You know, when you come in halfway through a season, you know, I'm sure any managers will say it's a tough ask. And you know, when you're joining the biggest club in the world, where they were at, it was going to be even harder. So, you know, I think it's been said that you're going to have to give him time. He needs time, and you know, he needs how many transfer windows? Who knows? But you know, you've got to, you know, set your marker, put a stamp down as soon as you start this season. I don't think that anyone can give him any more excuses. It's now or never, really, to be honest. That, you know, he's got to have a good pre-season with a team, work out what his team is, what his best team is, what players fit into the system, unless he's going to change the system. But you know, you can't see him changing the formation that he's.
Now or never for Ruben Amorim. What's your thoughts on that? Because that makes it sound very much like if it doesn't work, if it doesn't go right, it's on the manager.
Well, I think it's part of listening, isn't it? And analysing information and not taking little clips that suit your agenda. Because I discussed this at the weekend briefly on the United stand, and people were like, no, you're being unfair. You're taking it out of context, because he actually said a few transfer windows and give him time. No, he was summarising what people have said. He said how many transfer windows, people are saying give him time. What he actually said is he's got a summer pre-season, it's now or never, and there's no more excuses. That was his comment. It's very, very clear. I think it's incredible. But on the other hand, it's disappointing. I mean, look, not all professional footballers are that intelligent. You know, they can't be greedy. They're talented with their feet. They're in the top 0.1%. Making it, respect. They're not many of them are going to be that intelligent. And I think that, you know, we assume that because these players have spent time at Old Trafford, that they're going to be, you know, understanding of the situation, but they get paid good money. And when they retire, you know, look at what Ashley Young's doing now. He's starting to put himself on Sky. I'm sure he'll be on Talk Sport soon. He'll also be thinking about ambassadorial roles at Old Trafford. You've got to keep your door open. And that is why you get very few ex-players beyond the Roy Keanes and sometimes Paul Scholes who don't need the money, who don't need the after-dinner speaking or the ambassador roles. Ashley Young strikes me as another one of those players that, you know, is going to be needing to make a living for the next few years and therefore doesn't want to close the door to the Glazers. And trust me, when you speak out about INEOS and the Glazers, doors start to close. Which is why a lot of people in our game don't do it, because they are waiting for that, you know, opportunity, which I won't get anymore. And I know that a long time ago, since the Rasmus thing, that should have been a starter for something, and it never was, because I won't shut up being honest, because my morals won't allow me to. And I think when people say that Ruben Amorim, it's now or never, and there's no more excuses, there's literally 50 excuses. Like, there are countless excuses. I mean, where do you want me to start with the excuses? He's been given one player, 1.5 players really, because Dorgu's a kid. He's not been, the players that he wants out are still here. It's the middle of July. In the time we've been working on this Mbeumo deal, Arsenal have signed half a team. We're miles and miles and miles behind. We're in massive debt. INEOS are terrible at what they're doing at the moment. Whether they improve or not, the 18 months has been terrible. And I think the last person to blame is the manager, who I would look at and go, we brought a guy in. I mean, look, if INEOS's plan was we've got no money and we've got to make do, just give the job to Thomas Frank. Don't give it to Ruben Amorim, where you need to build a whole team around a whole system. So I think Amorim has got multiple excuses, unfortunately. And it's a shame that another person is sat on national TV basically loading the bullets for another manager out campaign, because the next manager will suffer and the next one will suffer as well.
I couldn't agree more. I think what I find, this is the thing that I find ironic about Man United fans do this as well. I've been quite patient with the summer. I've been quite patient with INEOS so far. I've called out their mistakes, Ten Hag, Ashworth. I spoke about this last week on the United Stand, and I always say this to people, you don't call them out enough. Look, I sat there on the biggest, not just Man United platform, the biggest fan channel in the world, which is your channel, the United Stand, and said that we haven't done a good enough job in the selling of players. I'm happy we haven't sold Sancho at a loss, but I'm still disappointed that we haven't got the deal done sooner, and I stand on that. That all being said, what I find ironic is that we spend the entire summer complaining about how we're run, about the owners, about the money we spend, and then as soon as the results don't go right, it's sack the manager, he ain't good enough. And then what happens is, then you get me, and I'll go, hang on a minute, we've all spent the summer saying that the ownership haven't done enough, the ownership are not good enough. Then I get told to shut my mouth again. And this has happened for 8-9 years on the bounce. The owners don't pick the team. The owners don't coach the team. The owners don't make the substitutions. We must show, hold the manager accountable. And that's where I get a little bit miffed and a little bit lost. And I don't agree with Ashley Young. There are definitely excuses. If Arteta is being dragged over the coals for having 600-800 million pounds spent and not winning the league, we can't look at a manager that thus far has had 80 million pounds spent on a broken club, a broken system, and a broken squad and say he's been fully backed. Those two things, only an unintelligent person who cannot do conditional reasoning would ever think you can compare those two scenarios. And I do agree, and I've said it for a while now, like it's all eyes on INEOS. You know, they said, and Ornstein quoted this in January. January was slow to get their summer in order. The manager needs to be backed. There's got to be 5 to 6 needle-moving signings this summer. Doesn't have to be the best players in the world because we're not in the market for that, but 5 or 6 of the Cunha type level in various positions. If they don't deliver that for Ruben, yes, I'll criticize if he makes a bad sub. Yes, I'll criticize if he does something wrong, but I am not looking at Ruben Amorim and saying he now has to deliver a top 6 finish with this broken squad that isn't fit for the way he plays football. And I back him, and I think he's right to not yield on what he does because he told us what he wants when he came in. He needs to stick to his guns here. So, yeah, I think Ashley Young is absolutely wrong on every single level. And it's just mad to me how the ownership of Man United still consistently by ex-pros rarely get the attention that's needed. It always, and it's because we're about to start kicking the ball again. Because pre-season starts this week, the shift starts to go from ownership straight to the manager. Why? Because the media know that fans are fickle like that. And Man United fans will forget about INEOS and forget about the Glazers. How do I know this to be true? Because every fucking season, excuse my language, for the past 8-9 years has been the same. We spend the whole summer moaning about Woodward and Myrtle and the Glazers and INEOS. As soon as the ball's being kicked, straight on the manager. And it drives me insane. I cannot express more anymore how much that drives me insane. So, yeah, it's going to be one of them ones, mate. It's going to be one of them.
And also, I think when you look at the summer transfer window as well, I think, and I wouldn't have guaranteed Amorim's success anyway, but if he'd done what Arsenal have done a backup goalkeeper to challenge the first goalkeeper, a centre-back, 2 midfielders, a striker, and basically 2 attacking midfielders, I'd go, that gives us a chance. I mean, Arsenal have basically had the window Amrim needed. They've basically gone and got the positions we needed. We've just got Cunha. You know, I mean, Arsenal fans would have been frustrated with just Cunha, but you could almost go, well, you did finish second. Arsenal have had the window we need to have, and we were 15th. So how we can have no more excuses, or it's now or never. I mean, maybe Ashley Young's just been on a really long holiday with no phone coverage and didn't get briefed before that, you know, United have done nothing. But it's poor analysis. But what do we expect? They continue to provide it.
Absolutely. You tweeted earlier on today, Mark, you said that one thing is true. INEOS are worse than the Glazers at running the football side of things. So to be very clear, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, I'm sure you agree, Mark isn't saying they've hurt the club as much. He's talking purely about the football operations. Never thought I'd say that, but they've actually taken us backwards over the last 18 months, totally out of their depth.
Yeah, and I think the clarity has to be on the football side of things, because the club's in debt, Old Trafford's rusting, it's going to get knocked down. The Glazers have done untold damage to the football club that it would be unfair to level that against Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS. However, we can judge them on the football side of things, and we were told that they were running the football side of things 18 months ago. They've had 18 months. They've had 2 summer transfer windows. And I actually believe that whilst the Glazers have been bad, when you look at their summer transfer windows, yes, they've been slow. Yes, they've done things wrong, but they would traditionally get the checkbook out now and panic and go, there's 60 million for Casemiro, there's 80 million for Anthony. And whilst that isn't good, it's still better than what's happening at the moment, which is next to nothing. And I'm not saying that the Glazers were good. They were terrible, but that's just how bad INEOS are at the moment. It is shocking how bad they are. And I would not think it would be possible to run the football side of things worse. They've sold nobody. They've bought 1 player, which was a release clause, so it wasn't really that difficult. And we've spent 7 weeks negotiating for Mbeumo. So on the football side of things, I think it's a fact that over the last 18 months, INEOS have taken us backwards, 100%. Yes, they've got 6 weeks to turn it around. I'm not sure they are going to turn it around, Terry. I think that I don't know what they're going to do to turn it around. I spoke to somebody last week, and they were still naively, in my opinion, but bless them, believing that there was a plan. And I said, I get you wanting to find logic in the illogical, but I'm absolutely convinced that they know their plan is done. And we've all worked in, we've worked in business and stuff. When your business plan goes wrong, you're basically scrapping around to salvage something. And there is just no logical way that INEOS's plan was to be here on July the 15th. I wish it was June the 15th. And to rescue it from this situation is really difficult. Even the sales, somebody was arguing with me today about Garnacho, because I said I'd take 35 million now, put add-ons in it and a sell-on clause. And they were like, well, you must work for free if you sell. I was like, I don't know. I know it's not what we want, but where's your 45 coming from? Where's your 50 coming from? Like, we're going to have to start getting real. We're going to have to loan Rashford. Like, it's all right going, we want 40. There's got to be a buyer. It's like when you put your house on the market and saying, I want 100 grand for my house. If no one's going to pay it, you're not going to get it, whether it's worth it or not. There's got to be a buyer.
I look at it this way. I've said all along, I understood why people were skeptical, and I understood why people called it out. I was going to be patient. I was just going to keep my feet on the ground and wait and see. We're now 2 weeks into, we're at the start of the second week of pre-season. We're not any closer to getting in Mbeumo, according to Ornstein, whose news I trust. And my frustrations are now starting to creep up. I was a little calmer than other people at the earlier stages, but the frustration is there. I think there was a plan. What I'm not criticizing the plan as in negotiating hard, not trying to sell people a loss. I agree with the plan. It's the execution that I'm looking at. And I think that that's why a nuanced conversation is needed. And we can all have a slanging match and go, they're just shit. I'm like, okay, but let's go into the weeds. I don't think their plan of action is wrong to try and buy as cheaply as possible and sell for as much profit as possible. I want that plan. But so far, they haven't executed it well enough. The next 6 weeks, as you say, of this transfer window have got to be have got to be perfect. The profiles of players have got to be impeccable. They've got to get them in so there's at least an element of preseason. And then the results will be on the football pitch. Does Amorim make us improve? And they've got such a hard job to do to turn it around because they messed up last summer by keeping Ten Hag. People like myself called that out right at the beginning. We then lost an entire season. And the one thing Ashley Young said in that clip that was right, we lost the whole season because we shouldn't have kept Ten Hag and we sacked him. We then brought in Ruben, and the money we spent in the summer meant we couldn't buy Ruben players in January. Ruben didn't want to join in the November. He wanted to come in the summer because he felt he needed a full preseason to get things started right. So you've waited a whole year. If they have a plan of action, it doesn't matter whether you agreed with it, whether you thought it was going to work, whether you thought it would fail. If it does indeed fail, that's 2 summers wasted, and that can't be tolerated. That must be called out. And I don't think it matters whether you backed INEOS from the beginning or you despise them from the beginning. We all, in essence, want the same thing. We all, in essence, want the same thing, and that is the club to get better. And I don't change my mind about anything that I've said. I like the fact that we're not just rolling over and having our bellies rubbed. But there comes a point, and you'll advocate for this, where there's only a certain degree where that makes sense. Like if we're haggling over £1 million, £2 million, and we're going to eat into 3 weeks of preseason training and the preseason games are in Burmo, it's not worth the £1 million. So I want us to fight hard, but there was always a cutoff point. And we're now at that cutoff point, and we need to start moving it forward because we now need to move on to the other targets. We need a striker. We need a new goalkeeper. These things are absolutely imperative. And now is the time for them to act. Whatever their plan was, they've got 6 weeks now to give this manager far more tools for next season. Otherwise, we will be in trouble. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and also football's a very different business metric because if I run my local pub and I know my turnover every week is going to be a certain amount of turnover and I'm losing money, I can basically say to my staff, look, normally on your drinks break, go behind the bar, get yourself a Coke. I can say, we're not doing that anymore. Just use water, and I can save money there. I can also say, let's take the portion size down by 10%. And this, there's ways I can make money, but I know the audience, the customers are going to still come through the door. In football, you can't sit there and go, we're not going to pay for Burmo, no matter what Brentford say, and we're not going to sell unless we get the money we get. Because as soon as August the 31st hits, and you haven't done those deals because you've gone, we're not going to do it. By the time it's October the 31st, you're probably having to sack a manager and you're probably staring down the barrel of another season out of Europe where it's going to cost you £100 million.
Well, also, if we sack the manager, the compensation we pay out is going to eat into any savings we've made in these players. And look, I agreed with what
you can't make money from running a football club, basically. No, they're trying to run the football club as a business because they don't want to put their own money in. So they're trying to make Man United, look, that's why they've sacked half the staff. They're trying to make Man United pay for itself. And the ironic thing is, it did. And it did pay for itself. And then somebody came in and took all this money out and left us with £800 million of debt that we can't pay for ourselves now. It needs somebody to come and put that money back in, which is what maybe Qatar would have done. It's what Todd Bowley's done at Chelsea. If they don't put money in, we won't be successful. But they're trying to run it like a business. And it won't work in football because everyone else isn't doing that.
I understand that. And I think from my perspective now, as I say, it's a case of they've got to deliver in these next 6 weeks. There's no if, buts or maybes about it. The money they would lose through sacking Ruben would eat into any profitability they make or additional money that, we save 3 million here. We made an extra 2 million here. That'll all go if you don't bring the players in for him. In the cold, hard light of day, that is the case. I agreed with what Ben Jacobs said on your show last week, that the club, and I think he said it on the terrace as well, that the club didn't want to just yield straight away and jump straight up to certain prices or sell a player too early for too cheaply because it would set a precedent that would end up impacting them. And I can buy that because I've been asking for it. And I've been asking for the club to do that for 10 years. So I'd be a hypocrite to go, well, that's stupid. But now's the time to make that all come. Now is the time to see the fruit of that labor. For this summer, you've now got to start moving on Sancho. You've got to start moving on, even if it is a loan for Rashford and we cover the wages, that's still, there's money saved there to then go and invest into another player. It's not ideal, but get something done, move it along, because whether I'm right, you're right, Staffy's right, the comments are right, all of that is great fun. We all get things right and wrong. It's about Ruben Amorim having an improved squad for next season, and that is the most important thing for me. And we're now going into the real important part of pre-season. We've got our first game this weekend. Cunha's going to be there. Very excited to watch him play. I saw someone on Talk Shit say there's zero to be excited about at United. I don't like that narrative because I'm looking forward to seeing Cunha as an example. So I'm not going to push that narrative. I'm still going to watch the games. I'm still going to support the team. But the ownership have got to do something now for Ruben Amorim. And back to the original point of this section, I think Ashley Young, it's such poor analysis to now start just trying to turn everything on the manager. And any Man United fan that does that, I do feel like shame on you, especially if you spent the whole summer complaining about the bad window. To then just turn it on the manager, I think it's personally crazy. KJ here says, but you could argue that they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that. Sorry, Glazers could do that because they had more money to work with. INEOS are working with the scraps the Glazers have left.
Yeah, and I think there's a good point from Terp here who says INEOS are trying to have maximum success with minimum spending. It just won't work. And I think that's a nice follow on to KJ because, yeah, I think we can all understand what INEOS are trying to do. They're trying to do something with limited budgets, but they bought into that. They bought 28%. They're working with the Glazers. This is why a vast majority of United fans didn't want that relationship, because we could see this was going to happen. And Terp has nailed it. The justification for what INEOS is doing is understood. But what they're trying to do is have maximum success with minimum spending. That won't work. Their whole strategy is flawed. I understand the strategy. And some people are even on board with the strategy. But look at the strategy of Chelsea. We'll sell the women's team to ourselves. We'll sell the hotels to ourselves because they just want to put money in. And what we need is, whether it's Jim Radcliffe or not, and, I know he put 300 million in, it wasn't enough. It's almost like people go, he put 300 million in. Thanks. That's like loose change when I need a bloody car. Like, we need a lot of money in, not 300 million in. And I'm not going to applaud him for putting 3 million in because it's not enough. It's not enough. Like, everybody knows what it needs. It needs billions going into that football club. And if it doesn't happen, then we will be continuing to have probably worse summers than this, because we're going to be in more trouble next year than we are now. Every year we're not in Europe.
The only thing I would say, though, about putting more money in, and this isn't defending Sir Jim, this is the reality of the situation. He could pay the debt off tomorrow, but the Glazers won't allow him to at this point because they don't want to sacrifice any more of their ownership. Equally.
But that's why you shouldn't have gone into bed with him.
No, I understand that. And I understand that. He is, though. And I think for me, there's this element of there's the reality of the situation that we're in. I think they would look to reduce that debt. The problem is the Glazers are not willing to sacrifice any of their ownership for and this was the same with the Qataris. It's one of the reasons the Qataris walked away is the Glazers were saying this is the asking price. But we're not paying the debt off with what you give us. If you want that 800 million debt gone, you've got to give us 5 billion. Plus, you've got to give us, you basically got to give us 5.8 billion to pay the debt off with. The Glazers would never have said all along, we are not going to sacrifice our valuation to pay the debt off. And that's a major issue with them. So that's still why, for me, I can see the criticism for INEOS, and there's lots of things to criticize them about, and I've done it. But for me, still, I always put the Glazers as the key issue at the club. And I know you do too. You just said the football operation, because the fact that, again, I would have loved the Qataris just to go, yeah, there we go. It's well overpriced, but we'll pay it anyway. I don't blame the Qataris for not wanting to pay one over the valuation and give an additional 800 million to pay the debt off. That's the issue here. That's why I've said all along, I still think the best solution to get rid of the Glazers is the fans crash. It does mean we'd go really far backwards to begin with. We've just got to crush the club financially and put our money away. Because if it can't pay for itself, they've got no option but to sell. But I do stand on this. As long as we keep buying season tickets, doing our memberships, buying those shirts, they're going to be able to service that debt. And if they can service that debt whilst the valuation of the club grows, they're going nowhere. It's as simple as that. This is Ten Hag's slated United difference in atmosphere is about football, not noise and chaos, not Manchester. They don't know what winning looks like.
It's not wrong, is it?
No, absolutely. Remember when sorry, remember them times when Arsenal cancelled top players' contracts like Ozil for the better of the club? You have to take the loss. The problem is we haven't got the financial ability to do that. We can't write Rashford's contract off and just pay him out 24, 25 million. That's a 24, 25 million pound loss that the club would pay out. This is where I will defend what INEOS are doing. I would rather us wait till deadline day and get a loan to cover his costs than just pay Rashford 24 million pound and let him join another club for free. That would be a stupid decision, because if we lose money on Rashford, we can't buy somebody else anyway. So I don't think we can do that at this particular moment. United ruining my day even in the off season. Bless you. Don't let it ruin your day. Should Maresca? Oh, sorry, we'll get onto that a little bit later on, different conversation. As a Gunner, I genuinely feel bad for United fans and how they are being treated by your ownership. Hopefully that the Titanic United versus Arsenal match of the Fergie Wenger era will return soon. We can only hope. Adele also says, it's really sad. I am devastated. Seeing how INEOS a month almost fouled in the transfer window, there's no excuses to do any sack decision. I agree. But then if they're really as bad as the Glazers, then what they'll do is they'll start to leak information and pass the blame. And we'll see the coaching is like a school PE teacher. The manager's too ill-disciplined. It'll all turn on
Training
him.
in the dark.
Training in the, the manager told a player off, boo-hoo. Then you get player FC that go, yeah, I hate him because he turned on Rashford. I hate him because he dropped this player. I hate him because he does this. And then they'll all turn on the manager. We'll sack him. We'll get a new one. Fans go, way, we're about to get better. We've got a new manager because he was a problem. And then we go, oh, shit, the Glazers. This happens every single time. So remember who you're listening to. According to Mark, Mbeumo's price was always 60 million, and anyone who says it was 70 million is a Glazer sympathizer. Could you please discuss? Oh, what? Because I say it's 70 million.
No, you know what this is all about.
Yeah.
Well, you are a Glazer sympathizer, Terry. You know that, and I've always said that. And
It's so true. I mean, I only tell people to boycott as like a shield, a ploy, a smokescreen, so people don't realize I'm paid by the Glazers. Shh, just keep it quiet.
Rattled. No, you know what it is? It's what happens on the United stand is that people want to, for some reason, and we had a lot of them on this morning, they want to defend this situation. And maybe it's the positive stance in them. Maybe they don't want to be realistic. Maybe I'm wrong. But the 70 million price tag that Brentford want is unsubstantiated. It's just rumour. And the 60 million price tag is also unsubstantiated, and it's rumour. But the point is, we've never offered 60. We've only offered 55. And I'm convinced if we offer 60 million plus add-ons, we'll get the deal done. But we won't offer 60. So 70 to me is irrelevant. It's like what people are trying to do is saying, it's 70 and it's ridiculous. And 70 is ridiculous, but we've only offered 55. We offered 62 for Cunha. We've got to go to what we offered for Cunha because that's his price. Now, if we offer 60 million and they say no, I would probably say, okay, that's probably it. You walk. But you can't talk about 70 when we haven't offered 60. We've offered 55. So I don't think Brentford wants 70. I think it was all around Sky Sports Lyle guy who I've never really heard of before, and he was talking about Brentford and 70. And in fairness, Ben Jacobs mentioned it on our show last week about 70. But I think we all know that Brentford want what we paid for Cunha, and I think if we go 60 and add-ons, they'll do it. But we've only offered 55. So what I'm trying to say is I blame United. I don't blame Brentford. We haven't offered a fair price yet.
So I don't blame Brentford. Brentford are doing the right thing. Equally, though, and again, me and you have had this conversation before, there was always a cut-off point. I think it's right that we didn't just roll over and have our bellies rubbed. So that I'm not annoyed about. But now we're getting into pre-season. That's where I'm starting to get frustrated because I want the player in and I want him to start training with the team and I want that integration because I was watching João Pedro for Chelsea. Now, Chelsea overall have a better squad and team than we do. But I was watching a much better striker play and he went, look at the difference in those two games. Do they win both those matches if Nico Jackson's playing? Maybe. But I don't think the 2 goals that João Pedro scored, Jackson scoring, he definitely ain't finishing that ball like he did. And now I want to see our new players who have been bought from similar sized clubs, who have actually had much better seasons than João Pedro. I want to see them both in the Man United team this Saturday. I want to see whether an actual pre-season with this team starts to improve even the players that we've maybe written off a little bit. So I do think it's a happy medium. Again, I've read a number of reports, Lyle, Ben Jacobs, Fabrizio, that have said it's 70 million. There's also other reports saying that they keep trying to push the price up. And we'll find the truth out afterwards. It always comes out. So I'm not annoyed that we've tried to keep the price down. But as I've always agreed with you on, there comes a cut-off point on that for me personally. But great super chat.
But also, has nobody ever negotiated anything? Like, we offered 55. If I was Brentford, I'd say 70, knowing that if I get around 60, I'll do the deal. But you're not going to say 60 because then we're going to go 57. You know, so
well,
I'll guarantee you the deal will get done for 60.
Yeah, be around that, definitely. Aren't you guys concerned Amorim cannot implement his tactics without needing big signings? I mean, United players aren't exactly semi-pros. You have a talent like Mainu rotting away. It's not about in these big signings, though, is it? I mean, this is why I don't like these comments, right? This is why I don't like this comment. Pep Guardiola is considered the best of his generation and was given excuses by everybody last year that bad recruitment and injuries meant he couldn't implement his system properly. We've seen this all the time. Liverpool, when they lost their centre-backs, oh, well, they've got other centre-backs at the club. They should still have won the league. No, they've lost their best centre-backs. They were losing games because of it. These things happen. All the greatest managers throughout the dawn of time have needed good quality players that can play their brand of football. Fergie, Pep, Cruyff, everybody. Ruben Amorim shouldn't be treated, again, and I see the media do this, you shouldn't be treated differently where it's like, well, make do with what you got and make yourselves win. Well, if that was true, why have Chelsea spent £1 billion on players? Why has Arteta had 700-800 million? Spurs, by the end of this summer, over the last 3 years, would have spent somewhere in the region of 600 to 700 million pounds. Why is every other club allowed to try and improve their squad? But Ruben Amorim is criticised for not doing better, ironically, with a squad that everybody said was shit anyway. Come on, let's be fair.
Well, it also exposes why INEOS will fail, because that comment sort of is the INEOS thing, isn't it? Let's be successful without spending money. And, who's the best manager in the world? Well, let's say Pep Guardiola is. If Pep Guardiola is the best manager in the world, why has he needed billions of pounds to be successful at Man City? Why is he not just picking up Preston players for 100 grand and going, I'm the best manager in the world? My system will work on anybody, because it won't. And that's the answer to the question. Amorim needs players who can play his system. They don't need to be the best players. I mean, look, Kenda would have been good. Gyokeres would have been good. They're playing for someone else now.
Yep. How many games this season can we cancel before the Glazers feel it in their pockets? Why haven't we started that boycott? That's the boycott is unrealistic. Why haven't we stated that the boycott is unrealistic? Well, look, I don't think it would take very many games at all until the TV companies are not. This is why I've always felt it wouldn't even take that long. If everyone didn't buy a shirt, you don't even
one game, wasn't it? That Liverpool game, and they shit themselves.
Exactly. And this is what you'd also do. It's not even about the Glazers backing down. Let's just say Man United fans said, we're not going to give up our season tickets. We want them for if they sell. Cool. Just do this for every home game. Instead of going to the ground, 70,000 people stand outside the Man United hotel. The players wouldn't be able to leave. The game would get called off. You do that twice, and the TV companies, who have a lot of power, are knocking on Man United's door and saying, hang on a minute, we ain't giving you your money. You are, because it would impact Sky and BT and all the international companies far more than Man United in the short term, because the TV viewers, not just Man United fans, are going, hang on, I'm paying the subscription to watch the Premier League. We're not getting games here. It would take 2 or 3 games, and you could make, I'd still believe this to my core, you could make a change quickly. The Glazers only care about making money. People that are money hungry are easy to control because you take the money away. The problem is that's tangible and it requires effort. And I'm not even talking horribly. There are lots of United fans that would do that. But there are quite a few that would just prefer a beer, a pie, and to cheer their team on. And that's fine. That's fair. But we're never going to you can never get money hungry people out of any organization or any part of the world until you cut the money. And we're not prepared as fans to cut the money. And the only excuse I don't like, and I push back, is, but somebody else might give their money. But you've done your bit then. I never understand that logic. Like, you've done your bit, and that's what I would do. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We've got to ride out the past bad decisions. Hashtag Amorim in. Ralph Ragnick was smart, would have been a good sporting director. Well, he wouldn't have been. He would have been sacked because he was calling out the Glazers and they got rid of him. But I hear your point. Moving on from this, Victor Gyokeres is about to sign for Arsenal. That deal is going to complete very, very soon, Mark. We know what I think he's a very good player. We wanted him at Man United. Viewers, let's listen to this hot take here from Tom Garrett on Pitchside. Let's take a little listen.
Here's another one. All his goals come in transition or penalties. Like Arsenal have 90% of the ball every game.
And also, if we are selling
he's
Martinelli,
quite clunky. He's terrible in the air for his size as well. He's not as good as Havertz aerially. I don't think he's as good as Havertz holding the ball up or linking either.
Do you not think
but he's a better finisher.
He's more of a number 9, which is what we're crying out for, getting the goals.
But then you're missing out on all the stuff Havertz gives you outside of goals.
But then also, when we had Havertz, people like you and other people were moaning about Havertz.
No, I know. I don't
what I mean? Like...
I don't think Havertz is good enough or should be your 9.
Yeah. But we should give him a go, Gyokeres. We should you can't knock him.
But you're talking about him like he's a child. Like, we'll just give him a go. Like,
he's done it I know he's done it in Portugal.
And so, mate, I could give you
Champions League as well.
I could give you 100 players who've done it in Portugal.
But he's done it in the Champions League.
Look at Darwin Núñez.
No, but he's done it in the Champions League. But my point is, you have to. You can't knock him until he's actually doing it.
No, did you watch the goals he scored against City? How did they happen?
Mostly transition.
I might be wrong, and I'll be happy to be wrong. I want Arsenal to improve. I think it'll be better for the league. That doesn't make sense to me.
Gyokeres, clunky, terrible in the air, not as good as Kai Havertz, doesn't make sense. What's your take on that, Mr. Goldbridge?
Well, for me, this is the striker I wanted at Manchester United, and I'm certainly not about to rewrite that just because he's signing for Arsenal. I think this is the problem sometimes. You know, there's so many people putting opinions out, mainstream, TikTok, YouTube, that I don't think they genuinely sat there and went, let's all agree that Gyokeres is great. I think somebody's got to play the villain, and in this case, it's Tom. And I've worked at TalkSport. I know that happens as well. I'm not saying it's scripted. I'm just saying that it's content creation, and I don't think he's got a point, actually, Valerie. I think he's got a terrible point, because I think it's so ridiculously lazy to say I could give you 100 players from Portugal that haven't done well. I could give you 100 players from Portugal that have. And also, we're not bloody AI robots, are we? We're human beings. And if every striker from Portugal has failed, doesn't mean that Gyokeres and Darwin Núñez are not related. So Darwin Núñez, for me, just can't finish. I think any Liverpool fan would agree with that. I think his positional sense is incredible. I think his work rate is incredible. He just can't finish. And I think if he could solve that, he'd be one of the world's best strikers. In relation to Gyokeres, he can finish. In relation to Gyokeres, he is strong. In relation to Gyokeres, he can dribble the ball. In relation to Gyokeres, his positional sense is very good. He is quick. I don't understand the analysis of a player where he's clunky and most of his goals come from transition. A lot of Haaland's goals came from transition before he went to Man City, but he's a wonderful penalty box striker. And I think if you give Gyokeres 3 good chances, which is what you would be expecting in an Arsenal shirt or a Man City shirt or a Liverpool shirt, you give Gyokeres 3 good chances a game in an Arsenal shirt, he will score 20 Premier League goals. And that's what Arsenal want. Now, he might look clunky. He might look like he can't take a free kick. He might not be great in the air. But I've seen enough of him. I'd have took him at Man United if Arsenal had pulled out today. I'd still take him at Man United. I think he is one of the best strikers in Europe. And I think the big fit for me, and it fitted United perfectly, is the fact that he's not 21 or 22 like Sesko, where if he'd come in, you'd have to go, well, we've got to give him a bit of time. The great thing about Gyokeres is he could flop. Anybody can flop. But he's 27. He's got to hit the ground. So if for all these people, and I heard Rio Ferdinand doing it as well, that he's going to struggle against Premier League defenders. He's playing for Arsenal. He's picked the right club. They need a striker. They're going to create chances, and he's going to score them. And he would have won the European Golden Boot if there wasn't some stupid rule about the top 5 leagues getting their goals doubled and everyone else getting them times by 1.5. He's also scored goals for Sweden. He's also scored goals in the Champions League. So the arrogance around the Portuguese league is incredible. And let's not forget, we've just watched the Club World Cup where the Brazilian league held its own against Premier League clubs. So I think that there's a lot of arrogance here. And I think actually as British, and I see it with Man United a lot, we're quite arrogant about, oh, he's from the Portuguese league or oh, he's from the French league. And yet, how many Champions Leagues have we won in the last 30 years? So I think he's a fantastic signing for Arsenal. I'm very, very jealous of it. And I think people are naturally just trying to be negative about a player before he's even had a chance. And look, he must be given a month or two to adjust. But he won't be given that. And I hope he doesn't score against Man United, but I hope he hits the ground running because I think it will make the Premier League title race a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a flaw in most players. You've had a handful of players, let's say attackers as an example. There's been a handful of attackers in the last 30 years of the game that, you know, the era that you and I have watched, that you would say have been flawless. You know, R9 at his peak, kind of flawless. Messi, Ronaldo at their peaks, kind of flawless, really and truly. Could do it all, brilliant, always delivered. But everybody else, that there is not a striker that you could think about, and maybe you don't remember all their flaws, but I think of someone like Inzaghi. Okay, this man was prolific and dangerous, but he lived offside as an example. If a Premier League team signed peak Inzaghi today, you'd get a percentage going. I don't want him. Why? He's offside too much. Yeah, but he scores 20 plus goals a season. He's excellent. You know, there's Andy Cole used to get this a lot, and he used to be saying, I remember a lot of friends that weren't United fans. Yeah, he misses too many chances. He misses too many chances. And then I did years later, when all the stats came out, I did the maths on it. He had like a 20% conversion rate consistently, but it was a narrative that was created that he missed too many chances. He didn't miss any more than the other strikers in his era. So sometimes when you hear something, people make it sound like it's the truth. And yeah, okay, he's not scored a lot of goals with his head. That's fair enough. But the amount of opportunities that it's not even Arsenal missed last year, where there wasn't even a striker in a natural striker's position to tap the ball in or to make the right runs off the shoulder. I think he's going to be a massive hit. And yeah, of course, there's some elements of his game. You know, there might be moments where he's a bit clunky. There's definitely going to be times it will happen on the opening game of the season, Mark. The ball's going to get fizzed into him against United. He's going to control it, and Maguire might take it off his toes. That doesn't make him a bad player, because I saw R9 get tackled multiple times in the game. And in fact, even the best players ever, if every time they held the ball up, if every time they tried a through ball, if every time they tried a shot, they scored. Do you know that Messi would have like 10 times the amount of goals? Like Barca would have won every game 8-9, 10-0. You lose more. Attackers generally lose more duels. They get tackled more, and they shoot more off target than on target. But we've done this weird thing in the modern day game, is we try and take a stat like, oh, look, only 40% of his shots are on target, and we try and make it sound abnormally bad, but it's actually very, very good indeed. So listen, I respect pitch side and what they do over there, but I think these bad Gyokeres takes, I think they're going to age in a very similar way to that of the Erling Haaland takes. Which, by the way, I was going to say exactly this. It was Rory, wasn't it, from the same outlet, or the club, which is basically the same thing. And it was like Erling. Well, they're right next to each other, aren't they? They're the same thing. But they are. They're not the only people who do it. It's not really my style. I did do it once when I said that Van Dijk was going to be the next. It was the Dutch Chris Smalling, and actually Chris Smalling wasn't a bad centre back, to be fair. But that was many years ago. It's probably about 10 years ago now. But I think that it was Rory who said about how Erling Haaland was going to flop, and now you've got it about Gyokeres. And with all due respect, it's a bad take, because it's totally and utterly about making a bit of noise. It's totally and utterly predictive. And it's totally and utterly unfair on the player who has not played in the Premier League yet and hasn't even kicked a ball yet, to be analysing them and going, I think they're a bit clunky, I think they're a bit that. Look, it's an opinion, but I think it's one of those that actually almost benefits you if you get it wrong, because you can go, I was wrong. I was actually wrong. He's brilliant. And then all the people that were slating you go, oh, at least he's admitted it. It's actually a very good tactic. I'm giving away some tips here. It's actually a very good tactic to come out with a really out there take and then admit you were wrong. And everyone goes, he's a good lad, really. He's actually a good lad. So, look, it's normally the tactic of talk shit. It's talk shit tactic, really. It's normally someone like Andy Goldstein doing it, to be fair. But it's infiltrating our world now. Yeah, we all get things wrong. But I think... I do think you're right. I think a lot of, and I'm not necessarily saying Tom Garrett's doing this. I don't know the guy, but I definitely see a lot of people now look at a player that scored 97 goals in 102 games. And even if you're unsure, I still think there's a balanced way of putting it across. This idea, but they still do it to Haaland. So Haaland can have a bad few weeks, and they go, Roy Keane was right about being a League One player. It's like, no, he isn't. Like, if you've ever, I've watched League One football. Leighton Orient are in it. I watch it quite a bit with my brother. Erling Haaland is superior to every single striker in that league in every facet of his game on a consistent basis. It's an exaggeration, and that's what a lot of this is. Even if there's a chance Gyokeres' goals drop by 25-30%, but that's still a man in all comps scoring 20 to 30 goals a season, which is important. And I've also seen this with Gyokeres this year. People saying, yeah, but all comps don't matter. What do you mean? We might get 10 goals against League Two teams in the League Cup. Fair. That's again, but that's an extreme example. But at the same time, everyone's saying Arteta's got to win multiple trophies. Well, how does he win multiple trophies? If how is it important for him to win multiple trophies, but then players scoring goals in those competitions are unimportant and don't reflect a quality player? That's my problem with the analysis. It all seems jovial and flawed in a way of, I've got to find a way of making this a bad signing, as opposed to just being honest and saying, it's pretty good, really, isn't it? Like, that for me is what it should be.
Well, look, Haaland, for me, if you give him the service, is one of the best strikers in the world. Gyokeres is very different to Haaland because he actually can provide goals as well. So I think people are sleeping on that. I think he will do very, very well. He was the player I didn't want Arsenal to sign.
Yep. United not getting Gyokeres is down to Amorim and the players not being able to beat a hugely depleted 17th Spurs. No doubt we would have got him if we had Champions League football. Well, yeah, I mean, Fabrizio said it was like 99% sure it would happen, but we wouldn't have got him, though, because we would have got the lap. So we actually wouldn't have got Gyokeres, again, if you believe the order of these stories. So who I do think the laps look quite tidy in a Chelsea shirt, to be fair, but there we go. I'm still not over the Europa League final. Seriously devastating, but imagine we had won and the owners thought this is a winning team and not even got the only player we got. And didn't even get Cunha, I think you mean. I don't know. It really is confusing. Oh, we'd have bought players. Even the worst, when Mike Ashley was ruining Newcastle, they still bought football players. Like, we wouldn't have not bought a player. Not worried, but why is Gyokeres taking so long? Well, because you're dealing with a club. It's very obvious why for me. Sporting are just trying to do everything they can to get more money because they've got to give 25% of the sale away. That's why the clubs that have got sell-on clauses. That's all this is. And I think they're now regretting the gentleman's agreement, which they've relinquished, but they've got to honor it to a certain degree because there are still legal precedents within gentlemen's agreements. You can, at this level where people have got money to have good lawyers, you can still lose out in the longer term. So that's all this is about. I think Arsenal fans should remain calm on that. Speaking of strikers, though, what do you make of the Ekitike and the Isak situation? And I ask Mark because I've seen a lot of Newcastle fans slightly misquote the David Ornstein article. I get that Ornstein has said that Newcastle have no intention to sell the player and don't want to sell the player. But Ornstein is maybe the most cleverest guy in the industry with these words. No intention and don't want to isn't the same as they categorically will not. It's set in stone. I'm also seeing a lot of misquotes say that Newcastle want to play them both together. That suggests partnership. What the article actually says, and I'll quote it here for the viewers who haven't read the article, which is crazy if you haven't done so. What they say is the insistence, which is a strange word to use, the insistence is that Newcastle want to boast both amongst their frontline options. That reads, Mark, very differently to they're going to play them both together in a 4-4-2, right? How do you see this playing out? Sorry, go on.
I think there's three options here. This is Newcastle getting the Ekitike deal done first before they sell Isak, which would be clever because you'll get a better deal knowing that you're going to get good money from Newcastle. That's probably the most unlikely, but that could be possible. The second option is that you are going to lose Isak in a year, so you're getting Ekitike in before, and there may well have been a chat with Liverpool about that to say, look, you can have him in a year, but let us get Ekitike to settle him in. And then the third option is that they're going to not sell Isak at any point. They're going to get Ekitike in and just grow their squad like everybody else is. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but I don't think you can write off any option at the moment, which is what some Newcastle fans seem to want to do, because Ekitike and Isak don't work in the same team unless Eddie Howe is going to change the way he plays. You've got Alanga and Murphy on the right, you've got Barnes and Gordon on the left, you've got Isak down the middle, and then you've got your midfield. Ekitike plays in Isak's position. Now, rotation, injury, of course, they wanted João Pedro. So that may well be the option, but remember that Ekitike is the most viable alternative to Isak for Liverpool, and they do want a forward. Now, unless Darwin Núñez is going to stay, which seems a little bit of a waste of everybody's time, I still think Liverpool are a factor in this. And I don't think that, look, apparently Ornstein tweet said play alongside Isak. Look, David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano are brilliant transfer journalists. They're not getting the team news from Newcastle in the middle of July. I'm sorry. So anybody who's trying to tell me that David Ornstein says they're playing alongside each other, they're not playing for a month. And they are not, David Ornstein is not getting the team news from Eddie Howe. So I'm sure he's part of the squad and maybe they'll put him on the wing. But I don't think David Ornstein knows that Newcastle are changing to a 4-4-2. He's probably been told by Newcastle that we are bringing him in to be with Isak as an option up front, and that might well be the case.
Well, I posted it in the comments section. This is what the article says. So yes, the tweet says play alongside, and that's fine, but never form an opinion purely off a tweet. Read the article. The article says the obvious follow-up question is what it means for Isak's future, and the insistence is that Newcastle want to boast both amongst their frontline options. So that is what the article says. So I get he then paraphrased it to play alongside each other. But if you read the article and the tweet, the only conclusion that I think you can take from that is that play alongside each other as in be part of the same attacking options, because the article goes into more specifics and broadens the conversation wider. He then also says, and again, Newcastle fans get very angry at me for talking about this, but I think I'm being balanced. There's a good chance he stays. I've always said that. But the next few lines say how Eddie Howe will keep that pair, okay, plus Gordon, Barnes, and Alanga happy is unclear. And the finances involved in retaining them will stretch them from a PSR perspective. So the fact that you're then so this is why I find it amazing that it's being ignored. And you're spot on, Mark. All those three options, sell now, sell in a year, they're going to both play together for many years. All three are plausible when you read what's being said. What is frustrating about the aggregation of this is people are picking and choosing which part of that paragraph to share. And I think that's very disingenuous from all parties. I think you should be talking about all of it. He's also said as well today that this is what's interesting. Ornstein has said that the number 9 is now the priority position for Liverpool. Ekitike was a backup option. He's now going to go. Their number 1 target was Isak. They've got shed loads of money and they're going to sell people. I think they're going to put a bid in. Whether they get him or not, Mark's another question. But I think they're most certainly going to put a bid in for him, in my personal opinion. But look, viewers, give us your thoughts, give us your opinions on that. Mark, this here says, should Maresca get sacked if he doesn't win the Premier League or Champions League after spending so much money and entering his second season 4 points behind Arsenal? Obviously, we saw them win the Club World Cup. What do you think the expectation should be on Chelsea next year, mate?
I think that Chelsea winning the title next year would be an amazing achievement. I don't think that's achievable. It's not impossible, but I think that, yeah, you can't be sacking him if he doesn't win the league. And you can't be sacking him if he doesn't win the Champions League. I think they're ahead of schedule in his first year to win the Club World Cup, the Conference League, and get top 4. Is a major achievement. I think the way they played against PSG was incredible. It reminded me a lot of Crystal Palace in their FA Cup run, in the way that they were so efficient in their counters, but defended really well, and did it with about 30% possession. It's not parking the bus football. It's almost an evolution of football. I quite like it. It's not boring to watch Chelsea or Palace play like that. It feels like they have more of the ball because they're such a threat when they have it. So I thought it was a very good performance against a very good PSG side. That should translate to Europe. Obviously, they've played a Club World Cup. They're going to have challenges with the squad. It's their first year in the Champions League for a couple of years as well. The Premier League is going to be very, very competitive with Liverpool and Arsenal. So I think for Chelsea, the most important thing is to consolidate top four, which I think they will do. I think top four is already nailed on with the same teams and what they've spent. I think they might get third, actually. I think they might push Man City out to fourth in what will probably be Pep's last year. And Champions League, I think if they can hit quarterfinals, semi-finals, that would be a good year and maybe pick up another trophy, I suppose.
Yeah. Breaking news in the last minute, Bayern Munich have submitted an official bid for Luis Diaz of 67.5 million euros. It says it's rejected immediately. These are what I mean by people have got to read between the lines here. The next line is brilliant. Liverpool value Diaz at 100 million euros plus, but have informed suitors they have no plans to sell. Then why would you state the valuation? Why would you?
Well, I think Luis Diaz wants to go, and it's about managing the exit, isn't it? Like he wants a new contract, which Liverpool won't give him, or he wants to go. So Liverpool know they've got a player that probably wants to go, but he's got 2 years left in his contract. So if you want him, you better pay for him. And to be honest, he's a very good player. I mean, in the modern market, he can't be going for the same price as Cunha or Mbeumo because he's done it at a higher level. In a better side. So I think they're right to pitch it around sort of 75, 80 million quid.
No, I agree completely with what Liverpool are doing there. The other clip I wanted to play, final story of today is to do with Morgan Gibbs-White. Let's take a listen to what Sky have said here.
Put out a picture on social media today of Morgan Gibbs-White back at Forest training ground, which is absolutely fascinating because last week we reported that Tottenham had triggered the £60 million release clause in his contract, and then Nottingham Forest, they don't think the move is on. They are considering their legal approach about what could be an illegal approach from Tottenham. That's the understanding. They're consulting their lawyers because...
Apologies while that's freezing. Sorry, let me just see if I can make that work again.
There's a feeling that there's been a breach in confidentiality around this release clause of £60 million, and they believe that this approach has been illegally made. Neither clubs have commented on this, but it's really interesting to see the fact that a player who seems very close to potentially leaving Nottingham Forest has been posted in a club picture today returning to the training ground. It's our understanding,
hardball, aren't they?
Until there's a resolution in the situation, that he will remain a Nottingham Forest player, he will remain training and preparing for the new season.
There's also been said today by the Mail that Nottingham Forest have told Tottenham to not make any further contact with the player. And whilst we've just been talking now, Ben Jacobs has also tweeted about this, and he has said that Morgan Gibbs-White is training again today as he waits clarification. He says Forest prepared to take legal action, alleging that Spurs learnt of Gibbs-White's 60 million clause illegally. Gibbs-White remains keen on the move, but will continue his pre-season as normal. Told he has no desire to leave Forest on bad terms, which I think is really interesting. What's your take on this situation, and how do you see it playing out, Mark?
I think ultimately he probably will end up at Spurs. I quite like the professionalism. It's the same as Brian Mbeumo. You know, you want a pre-season. Why should you go on strike? Who knows how long you'd be on strike for? So I think pre-season training, turning up shows a level of professionalism. I'm not a big fan of players going on strike. I know it makes you sound great. He's on strike for our club, but you know, there's obviously who has a release clause and then no one knows about it for a start. It sounds very technical, and obviously, you know, Forest have had some success with their legal challenges lately. They're in the Europa League, aren't they, at the moment because of Palace? So maybe Gibbs-White will still be a player there. But if the release clause is there and Spurs have paid it, then I don't see how this doesn't happen anyway. I think it will happen at some point. It doesn't seem any logical reason why that would get stopped. But I guess we'll wait and see. You know, weird, I suppose.
Yeah, it's interesting. It all depends whether they've done anything wrong. So if Spurs have done nothing wrong, they're just going to wait this out. I do think it's good to play, as you say, he's being professional, but that's probably the right way to go about this. Because if he starts, because him and his team may have done something wrong, so it's better that he behaves himself, and he also may end up staying. I think it's the Gyokeres thing. I think Gyokeres knows he's going to go. They know there's going to be a resolution, but let's just say Spurs have done something wrong, and Gibbs-White mouths off for a bit, and then he has to go and play it for Forest next season. It becomes untenable for him, and the crowd give him so much crap. But we'll see. This year says Newcastle United playing a blinder with Ekitike, proper forward planning, a perfect age to play back up for a year. Plus, both he and Isak can play left wing. Perfect Champions League rotation. Fair point. Man City agreed a 10-year deal with Puma worth 100 million a year. Congrats, City. Well done. Bro.
When are we going to get 115?
I'm at a point now where obviously, as a Man United fan, I want them to be guilty, right? But I'm going to always be objective about it. But how we were told March. It's now July. They're just got a £1 million deal.
They're going to drop it at the most stupid time, I think. They're going to drop it like Friday at 6, something like that.
It will be 10 minutes into the Man United Arsenal game at the beginning of the. This is what I heard a conspiracy theory. They're going to be found guilty. But the Premier League are allowing them to get all these new deals and sponsors and financial things in place, spending lots of money so that they can cope with any fines that come with it for a period. And I'm like, I don't ever believe in those conspiracy theories, but look, it is what it is. It is what it is. Every transfer has a risk. Grealish 100 million from Villa to City, warming the bench. Nicolas Pepe 70 million down the drain. Henry GOAT Premier League player. Yeah, absolutely. Every transfer has a risk to it. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Mark, listen, always a pleasure to sit and speak to you. Mark's going to be live again 2 p.m. and at 8 p.m. on the United stand. I know you're busy at the minute because Beth and Co are away on holiday, so I know you're really busy.
Yeah, and they're off to the States next week as well. So
that'd be good. Bless. While you're stuck at home. What a life they lead. What a life your team lead. Do you know what I mean? I know they're talented, but there we go. We're live again at 3:30 today for Straight Facts with Aaron Talks Arsenal and LB, where we're going to be going through all things football related. I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe. Turn the bell notification button on as well. Get that done right now. Plus, if you're watching over on Twitter or other platforms, give it a retweet, give it a like, give it a share. But until next time, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.